You know, a lot of people think that gardening is expensive, time consuming, and it's just a heck of a lot cheaper just to go to your grocery store and buy your food. I get it. I used to think that too. I'm a city boy. I never envisioned that I'll have my own food forest growing so many tropical fruit trees and fruits and vegetables. I never envisioned that. But I'm going to give you today 10 tips that I wish I would have known before I started my food forest. Stay tuned. Tip number 1 is tree spacing. When we first started our food forest, we put trees right next to each other because we wanted as many trees as possible that we can get. That's not a bad thing, but you have to envision your trees getting larger because they will. And you should prune your trees, but the problem is some trees like mango trees still have to have some size for you to get a good amount of fruit to be able to feed your family. So if I were to start all over again, if I could start all over again, and what I'm doing right now, I'm spacing a lot of my trees at least 12 feet apart from each other. At least my big fruit trees that even with pruning, they still need some size. So tip number 1, space your trees accordingly. Okay, so tip number 2, taste your fruit before you buy the tree. So if you want to plant a fruit tree or you want to put some vegetables in the ground that you never had before, I suggest you just go out and taste it first. Because what happens is it takes sometimes up to 3 years, 4 years, 5 years before you get some fruit on certain trees. And you don't want to wait that long only to find out like you don't like the fruit. So I suggest that you taste your fruit first. And if you like it, then go out, buy the tree, plant the tree. But you got to try it before you buy it. Tip number 3 is invasive plants. Know what you're planting before you put it in the ground, because you think that you want some ground cover like this back here, and all of a sudden it's taking over your whole garden. And like bananas, you plant one banana plant, you're going to get 3, 4, 5, 6. So know what you're planting because it can quickly get out of control. So know what's invasive, know what takes over your garden so you can properly space it. So tip number 4 is learning how to air layer and how to propagate your fruit trees. You don't have to always go out and buy more trees, especially if you like the fruit that you have and you just want more of it. If you learn how to air layer and if you can propagate trees and you can plant that tree around your yard, you're going to save yourself so much money. I wish years ago, it's been 4 years now in my food forest, I wish at least 2 years ago that I learned how to air layer, because I would have air layered all our great tasting fruit and I would have propagated so many different trees that I'm doing now. I bought so many of the same fruits and I didn't know what air layering was. Now I know, now I do it. Tip number 5 is removing trees. Sometimes you just don't like the fruit. Sometimes that fruit tree is just not meant for your yard or your zone and you have to get rid of it. Instead of waiting 2, 3, 4, 5 years before you finally decide to do it now. Plant a tree that you actually like or that's actually going to produce. Get rid of your trees. Don't be scared to get rid of them. If they're not producing, bye-bye. Tip number 6, planting what grows in your zone. I know we all want to have trees that we see other people have on YouTube, or trees that you've heard or you've tried before, but if it doesn't grow in your backyard, most likely you're wasting your time planting it. So at least I would say try to make 90%, 95% of your yard trees that do well in your soil, and that other 5% or maybe even 1%, something that you're just like, you know what, I'm going to show the world I have a green thumb and I'm going to make this grow. I'm going to make a mango tree grow in Ohio, something like that. It's okay, but don't make 99% of your yard trees that just, have no business growing in your zone. Tip number 7 is just starting sooner. I wish that we would have started our food forest even sooner. I wish that we would have got the information that's out there. There's so many great people on YouTube that's putting out so much great information about how you can plant and giving so many great tips. I wish we would have listened and started planting earlier. Sometimes it takes 2, 3 years before you start seeing production in your trees. That's 3 years. So if you plant that seed today, if you get inspired right now, which I hope that this video makes you, and you plant that tree, It might take 2 years, 3 years before you actually get fruit. So get started right now. So tip number 8 is for anyone in Florida, Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, Georgia. The sun, when it tells you that this can take full sun, I'm in zone 10A in Florida, and I know that when I buy a tree or we plant something in the ground and on the back of that package, or if we buy a tree online and says full sun, it doesn't mean Florida full sun, at least not Central to South Florida full sun most of the time. Because if I plant my tree in the center of my yard with no shade, it's gonna die. So a lot of the time that you read something that says full sun, if you live somewhere where, you know, like a zone 10A, zone 11, something like that, it can't take that full sun. Tip number 9, this is a good one, is knowing when to plant your trees. I have learned through 4 years now that the best time to plant a tree is that late summer, early fall, like right now, because it's cool enough for your tree not to get any type of shock when you plant it. It's going to give your tree time to develop roots during the spring, and even in the summertime, you'll probably end up getting some fruit if you take care of it for a lot of trees. So that late summer, early fall is a beautiful time to plant a tree. Because if you plant it in the mid of summer when that heat is beaming on it, it's not a good thing. Another good time to plant a tree for Floridians is rainy season. So during rainy season, it's free water. Free water. That's probably your second best time to plant a tree. If you want to put a whole bunch of trees in your yard and you don't have irrigation, wait for rainy season. But you're going to want to hear the next tip if you do that. The final tip is stake your trees when you buy them or when you plant them. The reason why I say this is if you live anywhere where it's a hurricane or you're getting severe weather, you don't want to run out your house 2 days before a storm is coming and you got 10, 20, 50 trees that you have to go properly secure. If you buy yourself a fruit tree and you put it in the ground, just go ahead and stake it. Assume that the worst is going to happen tomorrow and you want to get your tree ready today. Just assume, just do it. It's going to save you a lot of time, and also it's going to help your tree grow straight up. It's not going to lean. Another thing that I would say off of this is look at where the wind comes in your backyard, because you have different pockets in your backyard we've discovered that gets a little bit more wind. So plant things accordingly to where you see the wind, or where you might see heavy rain or water build up a little bit more in your backyard. You don't want to plant certain trees in certain locations. So know your yard and know where you can plant certain things that it will survive better in storms, and in our cases, in hurricanes. So that's the 10 tips. I hope that you found that extremely helpful. I wish that someone would have told me that when we started our food forest. If I had to add one additional tip to that, it will probably be, if you have children, get them involved early. Our kids, we started our food forest 4 years ago. Our oldest, they pretty much know how to garden. They know how to pick something when it's right. They know how to rake. They know how to dig holes. They know how to do a lot of things that I didn't know how to do just 15 years ago, 10 years ago. So get your kids started early and you'll have a lot of fun. They'll have a lot of fun. And hey, let's be real. We can use the help with the weeds, all right? So get your kids in the garden. So thank you for watching. I hope this really helped you out, and have a great day.